How do you know when it's time to start increasing calories on a bulk? This is actually a really good question and one that troubles a lot of guys because people will just add 1,000 calories and say, well, I'm going to gain weight if I add 1,000 calories. And yes, that's true, but you're not going to gain the weight that you want. And so when I add calories, I never go by absolute amounts. I don't add 500 or 1,000 calories. I always go by relative amounts based on the amount of calories that I'm already eating. And so I've always gone by 5%. So we'll start with 5%. That'll be our number. 5% of the daily total added onto itself. So this looks like I'm eating 3,000 calories a day. I add 5%. 5% of 3,000 is 150. My new intake is 3,150 calories a day. Very simple. But how do you know when to add this 5% of calories? I have 5 points of criteria, and they're all yes or no based questions that if you can answer yes to each question, that means you're probably ready. If you want to keep bulking, you're probably ready to add those calories. Question 1, do I want to keep building muscle at the fastest possible rate? Am I still in a position of bulk? Do I want to keep building muscle? Is the goal to build muscle? If you can answer yes to that question, then you move on to the next one. Next one, my waist has not grown more than 2 inches from its starting point. So I personally like to keep a tight waist. Shoulder to waist ratio is a really big deal for me. If my waist has grown more than 2 inches from its starting point, so let's say my waist starts out at 30 inches and my waist is now 33.4 inches, I've gained 3.4 inches. That's more than 2. That's more than what I want to gain personally. And so if my waist is bigger than what I want it to be, adding more calories is not going to make my waist smaller. So I want to ensure that I stay at the amount of calories that I'm at until my waist shrinks down, or maybe I even enter a slight deficit from what I'm currently eating. That way my waist drops off a little bit. But if my waist is getting too big too fast, then I know the size that I'm adding on is not muscle. It's going to be water and fat, which is not what I want. So is my waist bigger? Has my waist not grown more than 2 inches from its starting point? So 30 to 32 inches, let's say. If you can answer yes to that question, your waist is still in good shape. You move to the next question. 3, I can still see my abs and obliques, so my abs and my obliques at night after I've eaten all my food. So people can say, oh yeah, I'm shredded in the morning, but I look fat at night. Well, that's because you've eaten a bunch of food. It's not that you get fat by the end of the day, just you've eaten a bunch of food and you have a ton of food volume in your stomach, and so that bloats out your stomach and makes you look fat. But even after that, can you still see your abs and obliques very visibly? If you can see your abs and obliques very visibly, you move on to the 4th point. 4, my face is not puffier than what I want it to be. Often, a big kind of reaction that happens is your face gets really bloated and you get like a bit of a moon face. And so, can you still keep your chiseled jawline while you're bulking? That's a question you have to ask yourself. If your face is getting more bloated, adding more calories is not going to make it less bloated. The 5th and final question that I have in my little formula, quick reminder of what we've covered. Yes, I want to keep bulking and building muscle at the fastest possible rate. Yes, my waist has not grown more than what I've wanted it to, so it's stayed tight. Yes, my abs and obliques are still visible by the end of the day after I've eaten all my food and drank all my water. Yes, my face is not bloated more than what I can tolerate. I still have a chiseled jawline, or at least a similar jawline to what I had when I first started the bulk. 5th question. Do I still have vascularity in my common areas? For me, my common areas are forearms and biceps. And so you might have shoulder veins that is just genetic. You've had shoulder veins your entire life. And so if you lose vascularity in the areas that you've had your entire life, or that you've had for a really long time, probably a pretty good sign that you're adding extra fat to that area, to your frame as a whole. And so, yes, I want to keep building muscle at the fastest possible rate. Yes, my waist has stayed in tight. Yes, I can still see my abs and obliques by the end of the day after all the food, after all the water. Yes, my face is not as bloated as I want it to be. Yes, I still have common vascularity in the common areas. I am probably good to go to add that 5%. And so people could just say, oh yeah, you need to eat more. You just need to bulk up and eat more food. And while yes, that's true, that's what you need to do, there is a little bit of a better way to go about it so you don't get fat. Because if you were to not do the 5% of calories and instead you're stuck, because the only way that you want to increase calories is if you want to keep bulking, but your weight has plateaued. There's no other reason to increase calories and increase your calorie intake beyond what's already in a surplus. So if you're in a calorie surplus, there's no reason to eat more calories if you're already in a surplus. And so the only reason to do that is if your weight has plateaued. And I defined a plateaued weight is I weigh the exact same weight, or my weight even comes down after 3 consecutive weigh-ins. And so for me, that's around 10 to 12 days worth of weigh-ins. If my weight stays the exact same and I still want to keep bulking, then I ask myself those 5 questions. Do I want to keep building muscle, waist, abs and obliques, face is not bloated? Do I still have vascularity? I ask those 5 questions. If I can say yes to all 5, then I add the 5% of the calories. And so that's exactly how I do it personally. If you have a different method, let me know. I'd be happy to hear about it. But that's what worked for me so far. And if you were to add, let's say, 1,000 calories instead of the 5%, you wouldn't really know where you get fat, because you can get fat adding an extra 600 calories, but you just added 1,000, so you added way more beyond what already got you fat. But if you add 5%, then you can go incrementally. Oh, I'm getting fat right here. Good thing I didn't add 1,000 calories, because then I would have got way fatter than I needed to. I'm getting fat right here. Now I can come back down, or now I can stay here and not have to go further. So you know exactly which amount of calories gets you a disproportionate amount of fat gain when you are gaining weight. I don't think bulking is vaulted. I don't think it's something that should be discredited or is not the most effective way to go about it. I still think it is the most effective way to go about building muscle, but people just do it wrong and they get fat. And yeah, so hope this helps.